Your son has returned. I bring the destruction of Olympus!
What's up, guys? In this video we are going to be talking about Alfheim in the next game. Now Alfheim, Corey hinted, had a bigger story to it, but they had to cut a lot of things. I'm going to be playing these interviews for you shortly, but first I'm going to play clips of when Corey said that we will or we might explore it in the next game. Take a listen.
Wrong side to make you
to
doubt.
make you question,
Gotcha.
right? And it's and we explore that hopefully at a later date and find out maybe a little bit more information. But it was also that sense of when you see the Dark Elves later,
Yeah.
they got a bone to pick with you. You don't like it very much. And there was more story. That level was so much bigger and so much more that was going on in there, and we just had to keep paring it down. And in that process, we lost a little bit of the explanation that I wanted in there, right? And this one was more of an exploration of the concept of everybody's side has some kind of justification, right? It is a matter of perspective, and then it is also that sense of Kratos not wanting to get involved in anybody else's business because he really doesn't know what anybody else's business is.
War is conquest or survival. I believe he said something to that effect.
And it's like there's always, that part of war that everyone is fighting for something specific, and it's like the light of Alfheim was this. Does it belong to anybody? That's the question. That is a larger thing. Is that does it belong to the Light Elves? Does it belong to the Dark Elves? We don't make that determination, and through that process, it is everybody making the judgment of like, do I like these characters or these characters? Maybe I think they're okay, and then you find out maybe I did make the wrong decision. Well,
I'm going to give you guys the full versions of the clips that I took out so you can clearly hear Corey's full thoughts on the Alfheim situation. But basically he's saying that he couldn't get all the information he wanted in this game, but we might see it in another. And that information was the fact that we stepped into Alfheim is not our choice to pretty much decide who gets the light. We should not get involved in any way. That's why when we got there, Atreus said, oh, should we help them? Kratos is like, no. He said that he really wanted that expedition in here, but it wasn't really so clear in this game. So I think this is pretty much saying that he wants, for the next game anyways, to go more deeper into Alfheim and their situation. You know, was it a mistake to help out the Dark Elves, assuming that the Light Elves were good, even though the Dark Elves stepped in our path because at that time they had control of the light where we needed to go? Or should we have just left them alone and then say that the Light Elves were the real enemies of this entire thing? Even though they appear as docile, this war has been going on for ages, so at some point they had to have control of the light. So they may not seem as docile as they appear. But that's going to be it for my thoughts on this. What are your thoughts? Do you think that Alfheim will make an appearance in the next game? And what do you think about Corey's thoughts? I'm about to play the full interview, both of the interviews right now so you can get the context. Leave a comment down below and hopefully I will feature it in the next video. Consider becoming a channel member because pledging just $1 a month keeps me making daily God of War videos. I really do appreciate it. With that being said, enjoy the full clips of Corey talking about the Alfheim War, really going in depth on his ideas. I'm gonna be out of here. Thank you guys for listening. Deuces.
When you kill him, he says you've made the terrible mistake or something like that.
yes.
I don't know what that is in reference to.
Okay. So there was a much larger story. Like Alfheim, it's a big level, but it was a lot bigger. I went a little overboard on that one.
It's
and-
very pretty, so
Yeah.
It is really pretty.
And thankfully the team was smart and they kept saying, okay, this is a little too big. We got to start cutting this thing down. And that was one of the first levels that went into development. So we developed that one the longest time. And the kind of high level core story of Alfheim was
We know there's a wall.
Yeah, so you're basically stepping inside of the middle of a war, and you have no context. And the context is coming in the fact that because Atreus can hear all these voices, he thinks he understands what's going on a little bit, but the reality is he can't place who is saying what, right? And the idea was to constantly keep playing with your understanding of the situation and the idea that because you step in the middle of it, everyone's hostile towards everyone. So you don't know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose thinking about it, it seemed like the elves are the jerks because they're killing all of the floaty people.
The floaty
Names
people.
I don't know. But then there's
They're
a
all
part where
elves.
you
There's
open
dark elves
they
and
are
light
all
elves.
Okay, so well, the light elves are probably the nice ones. Then, but there's a part where you open a gate and all the light elves just rush in and completely don't acknowledge you. And then I was like, oh, maybe they aren't good. Like that's really chilling. Like
Because they didn't acknowledge you?
Yeah,
They
they just like
rude.
they just seemed scary, just like completely like strolling past.
There is a line later in, if you go back there, I think with Mimir, and he sort of talks about how the war has been going on for so long, and the light, which they're fighting over, keeps going back and forth between the sides, that no one really knows who's right and who's wrong at this point.
And
Like,
they talk about how they've only known that war. Like, I like that line a lot. They were like, it's been so many generations into war that, like, they wouldn't even know how to not be fighting that war, which I found to be, like, a crazy concept.
And the idea of, like, it's sort of the player's decision to determine, did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? I mean, for me, I look at it as it really is one of those no-win situations, right?
So
there isn't a clear good guy and a clear bad guy as much as, is everybody the bad guy, right? Is everybody not right for wanting to own the light, right? Because it's not theirs to own.
So the king's point is basically just you pick the wrong side to make you
Right, to
doubt.
make you question,
Gotcha.
right? And it's and we explore that hopefully at a later date and find out maybe a little bit more information. But it was also that sense of when you see the dark elves later, they got a bone to pick with you. They don't like you very much.
Well, I love that there's a little bit of dialogue too about how the assumption is they came from Svartalheim, like the realm of the dwarves, actually, and that the sort of the history of this war. There's so much untapped there to really explore, which there's so much built into the lore that you can pick up, and I was like, I just want to learn everything about this world as it was going through.
I know, it's like, as much as I want a sequel game, I kind of want a prequel game.
Yeah.
Saying it says we made a mistake. We never really figured out what that was, so I'm assuming that's there's more to come with that. But I'm not like probing for future spoilers.
Right.
It's just planting the seeds to flesh out the world. You know, even if there wasn't a sequel, just planting those seeds to kind of build the world and give it more layers and more mystery.
And there's a little bit of the deliberate vagueness to kind of make it seem like, what did we do wrong, right? And there was more story. That level was so much bigger and so much more that was going on in there, and we just had to keep paring it down. And in that process, we lost a little bit of the explanation that I wanted in there, which was this idea of totally ripped off Stargate at one point, where they gate in to one side of a war, and only discover later that that's the wrong side, right? So that they think they gate into the victim's side, and they hear this victim's type story, and then as they're sort of seeing what's going on in the rest of the world, they realize like maybe these are the bad guys, right? And this one was more of an exploration of the concept of everybody's side has some kind of justification, right? It is a matter of perspective, and then it is also that sense of Kratos not wanting to get involved in anybody else's business because he really doesn't know what anybody else's business is.
War is conquest or survival, I believe he says something to that effect.
And it's like there's always, that part of war that everyone is fighting for something specific, and it's like the light of Alfheim was this. Does it belong to anybody? That's the question. That is the larger thing. Is that does it belong to the light elves? Does it belong to the dark elves? We don't make that determination, and through that process, it is everybody making the judgment of like, do I like these characters or these characters? Maybe I think they're okay, and then you find out maybe I did make the wrong decision. What I wanted, and I don't know if we achieved that, was that sense of that you sort of feel just, and then when that happens, you go, dude, why did I choose this side over that side?
Yes. And then again at the end, you know, Mimir says, "Who are we to be the judges?" You know, when Atreus is saying it, we can do it whatever we want. So good.
I was definitely a little suspicious when you open up the door and all of these non-speaking, which I think was also important to that story, that you never really get their side. It's not just like they're speaking a language you don't understand. They're just kind of glowing and floating around, and they all just kind of drift past you. And the camera definitely focuses on the happiness of Atreus. He's like, this is great. I'm like, probably not. Like, if he's that happy, I don't know.
And there's an idea with Atreus that he is empathetic, but he also can... You know, he can feel or intuit, he can hear sort of the thoughts of these other characters, right? Which is great because Kratos is just terrible with communicating with people. So the son's power clearly is I can understand people better and sort of feel the pain that they're going through. Introduced when he first meets fucking Gratitude and is able to understand, like, oh, she's afraid of the thing in the trees over there. This was he goes to this place and he's overwhelmed with people asking for help, right? That's the voices he's hearing, but he doesn't know. You can't process which side was asking for help, or were they both asking for help? Were they both basically wanting him to pick their side? And because he's still young, he doesn't understand how to use these things. He is unable to process this in the right way, and it's really overwhelming, right? He's a little embarrassed, doesn't want to tell his dad about it.
It was neat from that perspective, because usually the protagonist is the one who gets the voices, and then you have these secondary characters that are all looking at them like they're nuts.
Right.
And so it was fun to just have him be like, huh? And you're like, huh, what? What are you talking about? Like,
the first question Atreus asks when he finds out he's a god, can I turn you into an animal?
Yeah.
This is so awesome.
I think that'll come into play later. That's what I feel like.
What kind of animal did he ask to turn into?
It's like not a raven.
You're
Was it
asking
a
us.
raven or a crow?
Well, because it's super relevant.
oh.
A wolf?
A wolf.
And what character is that like associated with? Loki.
Oh.
Just telling you even then.
Dang it. See if I was.
Dang it!
Yeah,
All the
I
time.
thought I